Proceeds from the Great Wisconsin Quilt Show support PBS Wisconsin programming. Your financial gift helps make this event possible. Thank you.
Hello, everybody, and welcome. Thank you so much for having me. This is my first lecture. I will tell you I am very nervous, so I'm going to try and get through this. I want to be brutally honest with you. I'm very nervous, so I appreciate all of the faces out here, and it's such lovely faces. So hopefully I can get through this, and it'll be a great and exciting lecture. So I'm going to talk from the heart, because that's what it's about, the passion of hand quilting. So as you know, my name is Porfiria Gomez. I am a modern quilter. I'm a native New Yorker, born and raised in the Bronx. When I met my husband, I moved to Brooklyn to start our family, but New York is my home. Ironically, my mom is from North Carolina, Goldsboro, North Carolina, so I spent most of my summers in North Carolina enjoying the country, because my mom is actually, I come from a farmer's family, so my mom has a farm out in North Carolina. So we would go there every summer, watermelon picking, pecan picking, all the fun stuff that we would enjoy in North Carolina, Goldsboro. Just seeing family, friends, and just everything we enjoy in North Carolina. I'm also was named Martha Stewart's Quilter to Watch, which was very exciting back in 2020. She named me as one of the quilters that you must follow on Instagram for my linen fabrics that I pick out and the traditional colors that I use. I've been quilting most of my adult life. I learned about quilting from my mom, but I started quilting when I had my first son. And the reason I started fully becoming involved in quilting is because of being pregnant with my first son reminded me of my family. Family is very important to me, so that's why quilting weighs hand in hand with family and love and everything about the joy of your lineage. I started with my mom, of course, who is a quilter. She doesn't call herself a quilter. I had to give her that title as a quilter. She just says she makes them with love. That's what she'll tell anybody. She won't take on that title of a quilter. Most quilters also do know me as, in 2020, I started a foundation called the Color of Connection Quilt. It was about what was happening in that climate at that time with George Floyd, and other things that were happening in 2020. So I wanted to create with my partners a quilt that everyone could make, that we could all come to the table over something we all enjoy, which is quilting. And that was amazing, because quilting has no color. It's just all about us coming together and doing something we enjoy and telling stories about why we enjoy it or how we got started with quilting. What we're going to discuss today is the passion of hand quilting and the progression of hand quilting. So I'm going to talk about my story, naturally done by hand, the progression of hand quilting today, and start where and start how. So naturally done by hand. What do you think about when you hear naturally done by hand? Can anybody share any feedback with me? Sewing. Knitting? Mending. Oh, that's a good one. Who said mending? Mending is a good one. So when you think naturally done by hand, we're all been blessed with hands. We all have the ability to create with our hands, right? And we sometimes, I think, take that for granted, or we forget about that when you become a quilter. You kind of forget that because you're trying to keep up the machines that are out, all these modern machines that are coming out. So the first thing you think, I know for a lot of the modern quilters that I know, the first thing they think about is, I have to get a great sewing machine. I want to go out and spend tons and tons of money on a brand new sewing machine, because that's how I'm going to quilt. But that's not how I grew up learning about quilting. It really isn't. I didn't have a my mother had a Singer sewing machine that we bought from a secondhand store that I took because she was going to donate it again, but I took and put it in my home because it meant so much to me, because it only had one stitch. It only had one stitch. How amazing is that? That one stitch created so many fond memories. Now, fast forward to 2006, when I bought my first machine, I was lost with all the stitches that were in the sewing machine. I was absolutely like, wait a minute. And here I am, a modern day quilter, and I was lost with all the stitches in these machines. And I kept thinking about what my mom had created for me. Like, I just thought of, what do I need? Ma, what do I need? A needle and a thread. That was it. So, naturally done by hand, to me, brings back the memories and the natural progression of quilting. And in this day and age, I don't know if you guys saw it on the news, we're from New York, but a couple of months ago, we had the smoke that came to New York, so everything was dark. We were looking out the window. If you follow my social media, you saw these weird pictures. I compared it to a movie that was out in the 80s about the planet being completely red. So all I could think about is I didn't want to pull out my machine. It was already hot at home, and it was dust in the air. It was very hard for everyone to breathe. But I still was doing my quilting. So what did I do? I ran and got my hand quilt. And then I kept thinking, well, what happens if everything turns off? What happens if there's nothing? Will we stop quilting? Because quilting is like therapy for all of us. Well, most of us, I know it is for me. I still would want to do something with my hands. So I thought about how amazing it is to make sure you always have your hand quilt, your hand kit, your quilting supplies, and what you would need in case something happens, a blackout, anything. That's not going to stop your progression of hand quilting. Mommy, Nancy, and me. So I felt a little bit better. I see my mom. Believe me, before I started, I was on the phone with her, and I'm like, Ma, get on the next flight and come help me. She's like, I'm not doing that. I put Mommy, Nancy, and me because this is how influential my mom, Nancy, and me are. We would be at home, just picture this. My mom's cooking for her 6 kids. She's in her bedroom. My mom is a big sci-fi buff, so back then there was Sci-Fi Channel all the time in our house. And we will also be watching PBS. So she will be going back and forth watching Nancy, and I will be sitting there watching her watch this, but I was all in awe. I knew what time it came on. I knew it was PBS Channel 13. I want to see what she's making. And that's where this piece started to kind of invent itself. So this is my mom's quilt. This quilt means so much to me. Each circle is a piece of fabric from myself, my brothers, friends, family, people in her congregation. These are pieces that they would give us fabric. She would gather fabric. We would cut out fabric. I helped cut out all these circles, and they were these little bitty circles that we would sit and just cut out one by one by one by one. And she wouldn't go to that Singer sewing machine. What she did, she would create these little circles, just keep going, stitching each one together by hand. At the time, for her, it wasn't, she did it in the moment of, I want to create something for my kids to be extra warm this winter. And that's what I admired, watching her, being completely excited about her saying, help me out with cutting these circles. Someone gave us this fabric, let's cut out some more circles. Let's cut out, and I'm going to show you how to do it. So sitting there, and some of them are my stitches. Some of them are my stitches, majority of hers. I was just sharing how I don't know how she was able to complete this as quickly. I'm working on a project similar, and it's taking me forever to create it, to recreate this quilt. But she stitched every piece together. And back then there was a Woolworth, and we don't have Woolworth. I'm telling my age, guys. There was a Woolworth in the city that we had that she would go to get the batting that, now I don't know what batting she used. I just know that I remember the batting, she put it's very heavy, mind you, it's very heavy, but it's stitched in love. And it's stitched with memories from my childhood. When I look at this, all I could think of is my brothers and I laying on the bed, watching a movie, and enjoying the fact that our mother created something that created warmth. by hand. Not a sewing machine, just by using her hand. She stitched it together. She even mended her sides together, and you can still see some of the stitching on the side that she mended together. Now, the back is a different story. She used a white sheet, so I'm quite sure it's all the stains of my brothers and I and everything else behind it. She also created 2 pillows behind it. One of the pillows she kept, and the other one I do have in my possession. Again, I'm trying to recreate that same pillow, but it was all done by hand. She left a story for myself and for my brothers to have, and she showed that quilting doesn't have to be done with the most expensive pieces. They just have to be done with a passion, and you just have to start where you are. So, the naturally done by hand and the progression of the hand quilter today. The natural progression is in your hands. Think about the lifelong quilt you created. Does it need patchwork? You can take time to mend it by hand. That's why I said, whoever said mend, it means so much. So I don't know if you do it, but I know the quilts that I took from my mom, I started to mend them by hand. And when I make quilts for my boys today, I don't know why or how, I use Kona Art Gallery fabrics, the best of the best. They still manage to have tears and rips and everything else. But the best part is not when I created it in the beginning. The best part is when I get to mend it. And the best part is when they see me mend it. They see their mom putting that stitch in, that forever memory. And that's what my hope is, because I have that forever memory. And that's what quilting is about, creating that forever memory. Even if you go to a secondhand store and you see a quilt and you bring it back home, whether you're making a jacket out of it, whether you're going to use it for yourself, sometimes you have to mend that. So it becomes a part of your own personal story, which is so amazing to me. Because quilting, every quilt, all of your quilts, if I even touch it or see it, I can just imagine what were they going through in that moment when they were creating it? What were they thinking about? You know, we always have stories in our quilts. All my quilts, I could tell you a huge story about what was happening, how I was feeling. That's what quilting is all about. The gut of quilting is about the story that we tell when we're creating these beautiful quilts, this beautiful legacy. Because no matter where it ends up, there's a story. There's someone's hand, someone's beautiful hands that touched it, that made it. Whether you're a fabric filler like me, I'm total fabric filler, there's something that you put into that. Everywhere in the world, it's by hand, and it's the story that they're putting into what they're making. This quilt here that I have is one of my recent modern quilts that I made. So the pieces are sustainable. I call them sustainable pieces because there were pieces of fabrics that I had from my kids from around when I purchased fabric in the past. I took those pieces and I began to piece those together. And that's what I mean about the progression of the modern quilter from hand quilting to if you send it off to a long armor. How were quilts made before sewing machines? The question we all have to think about, right? Again, it goes back to what I mentioned earlier. When you first start out quilting and making, you don't necessarily have to run out and get the best sewing machine. You don't have to run out and get a sewing machine. You really don't. You just have to start with what? What are the 2 most important supplies? A needle and thread. We all have those canisters, at least I hope you still do. I have one, I made one for myself thinking about childhood, which is that cookie canister. There's commercials now, everybody's making fun of it, right? You know, there's not really cookies, it's like childhood trauma. They always took the cookies out and they just put buttons and needles inside. But how iconic is, and I love that culturally, everyone has experienced that, right? They go and they're like, oh, grandma has cookies or mom has cookies, and you open it, and it's just a container of buttons and needles. But how amazing is that we all share that experience, right? We all know about that container. what was the name of those cookies? I know they're butter cookies. I can't remember the name of the cookies. But how amazing is that experience that we can all share that? And it doesn't have to stop. It's something that should continue because it is the progression of quilting. It is the natural progression of hand quilting. Everyone should have it. So my mother had the round cookie tin container. I have the tea box because I love tea. So I have the little tin box from when I bought tea, and I put all my stuff in there for my boys, and I tricked them too with that. The marriage of the home sewing machine and your hand quilting. And that's where it goes back to this in particular quilt. The marriage between the hand sewing, your hands and your long armor or your home quilting machine. You can marry the both of them together. For me, when I made this, I was just in a car, we were on our way somewhere, and I just started to put the fabrics together. When I'm traveling, I'm on the subway. If you ever visit New York and you see me, I'm telling you, I'm that person that's sitting there. I don't care. I'm going to sew. There's times I'm on the train and I have my whole full quilt. It just makes me happy. I just enjoy it. It takes me away from the chaos of New York City. But I pieced these together, and then I had the Kona, which I love. I just used the Kona fabric, and then I sent it off to my long armor. But there's two things that's happening in there. My long armor's hands and my hands. And we created this beautiful piece that was actually sent to a museum that I had hanging up, which is very, very honorable. It was wonderful. So that was the progression, seeing that happen, that I could still hand quilt, but I could still send it out to my long armor. Modern quilters today, the first thing they do, they send it out to the long armor. I remember having a conversation when I went to my first quilting conference, and I was surprised, honestly, that everybody was sending all their quilts out to long armors. I was shocked because I wasn't used to that. That was something that was brand new to me. And they said, you're still using your home machine and you're still stitching it yourself? I'm like, isn't that what we're supposed to, is that not quilting? I got confused. I was like, oh no. But then I remembered in the moment that things had changed. There was a faster way of doing things. There's a faster way of getting what people use today, their social media content out and their quilts and things like that. So they would send them off. And I took it as, okay, there's somebody else's love that's being poured into my quilt. There's a story about that person that I picked to long arm. And the story continues to go and to go, because we all have stories to tell. And I'm a big storyteller. I love telling the story of how something happened. You know, I'll sit you down and tell you, it started from here, it went there, because I love that time and that connection that we could tell stories about how things evolved. And how can we love it so, right? Especially now, no one talks about the story of how the quilt makes you feel, how you love it so, or that in particular quilt was particularly special to me because of this or because of that. So the marriage, and there is a marriage between the home sewing machine and hand quilting. I hope I'm not going too fast. The world is in your hands. How many people have heard quotes like, the world is in your hands, or you have the power in your hands, and they're so on and so forth, right? I think there was a quote by Nelson Mandela that talks about how our hands have the ability to change the world. You have the ability to change one person's life. Like when I walk through these quilting conventions and I see these beautiful quilts, see, my thought process is, oh my God, what was she going through? What was she thinking? Why did she pick those colors? There's something amazing about her colors. Who did she send it to? And I'm reading the story, trying to identify what was actually happening or what was going on in her spirit that created this beautiful piece. And there's no two pieces alike. One thing I love to say with quilting, you take the pattern, I take the pattern. I call myself sometimes a rogue quilter. If I get the pattern, I go rogue. I'm over here with it, I'm cutting it this way. And then there's some people that stick to the pattern, they make it exactly, but there was something that went into them creating that pattern. It was something that they were thinking about. So when I think the world is in your hands with hand quilting, I think about how we all share the same thing. Everybody put your hands out. Just put your hands out if you can. We all share the same thing. Hopefully we all have our fingers, everything, we're all quilted. And you look at it, we share the same thing, we share the same hands. If we put our hands in a big bowl, you can't tell whose hand is who, I'm telling you. You can just tell this story. I know when I met my husband, who's here today, he surprised me because he knew I had jitters. He's over there, we're gonna peek at him. When I met my husband, I thought about my mom. She would always say, my nickname is Jelani, she would always say, Jelani, do you know that there's so much to be told in a person's hands? She would always say that. And she would say, when you meet your husband, you're gonna know that's your husband by his hands. And I, whatever, Mom. But she was right. Years later, my first date, all I could see was his hands gesturing. The hands just kept moving, and it told a story. You know, my mom said the working man hands or the man that doesn't work. I could tell by his hands his story. And I fell in love with that moment. I fell in love with the hands, honestly, I do. I still love your hands. But your hand, and even today when I sit and create my quilts by hand, I'm watching my hands. And I'm thinking about what can I leave for my 3 boys? What can I leave for them? Will they remember my hands the way I remember my mom's hands and her bracelets jiggling as she went in the thread and needle up and down and the rings jiggling and the noises it would make? How my brothers would run through the house, how the house smelled, the food she was making, those memories she was creating. Now, I mentioned to you earlier, I started quilting again when I got pregnant. I just went and found what I had at home, and I just started doing it again. And the reason, I thought family, legacy. I wanted to create that for my family. And when I meet other quilters and they tell me their story, the first thing I ask, when did you start? How did you get started? Tell me more. And then I love to hear the stories and people share. I just was talking to someone outside and she was talking about how she learned from her cousin. And I'm like, this is so awesome. Can you imagine the 2 of them? I don't know them, but the 2 of them together and what joy it must have been for the both of them sitting there together talking about fabrics and creating, and you did this and you did that. A common ground. Something that we all share, something we all can enjoy by hand. I did this really quickly. It's a rough quilt. It's a very Ohio Star rough quilt. But in the moment, I was going through something. Earlier this year, I had transitioned from a position I had at work, and I transitioned to trying to create more quilts and become a quiltpreneur. That's what my goal is. And a lot of tears, a lot of pain, a lot of sorrow, a lot of ups, a lot of downs, a lot of laughter, my kids making me laugh and telling me they need new quilts now again. But all I could do is think about my hands. That's the one thing I have. That's the journey. My hands are going to take me to the next journey. They're going to create another story. So the world, and I know that may sound a little cliche, the world is in your hands. The world is in your hands, your quilting hands. You guys are all quilters. Everyone in this room is a quilter, I'm assuming, or you love quilts. And you can start right where you are. Start where you are and be patient with yourself. You have to be patient with yourself. You know, have you ever been frustrated like I have? I look on media or I'll visit a quilt show and I'll see someone's art and I'm completely intimidated. Wow, they did that by hand. Wow, they did that by a machine. Wow, they did that. How did they do that? Completely intimidated. Your art is your art. Your hands are your hands. Your story is your story. You don't have to be someone else or try and imitate something else. Just imitate what you are, who you are through your hands, and be patient with yourself. Don't be, a lot of times I want to go back to my mom because she's helping me. She's not here, but I need to see her face. A lot of times we are so hard. We are our worst critics. We are so hard on ourselves when we're creating. But start where you are and be patient. All you need is that needle and thread, or like someone mentioned, just mend that quilt. Take that time to mend that quilt, that gift you give to someone. So remember the passion and the progression of hand quilting. And that's my end. I know it finished early, but I'm going to take questions. I want to thank you, too, before we start taking questions. Some of you your faces are just amazing. I'm being so honest. Thank you for being patient with me and being my first. I hope to continue to talk a little bit more passionately about hand quilting and evolve this sort of lecture. So do I have any questions? What Betsy asks is that she knows that at one point I started with my partners, both Michelle and Kiana. Michelle is from Atlanta. Kiana is from Columbus, Ohio. We started together the Color of Connection quilt, and she was asking what that meant to me. Am I correct in saying that?
Yeah, or just any experiences that really stand out, because you did some outreach with that as well.
Yes, absolutely. So we continue. Unfortunately, the Color Connection, Michelle went on to have addition to her family, and Kiana went on to do other things. So for me, I continue the message of Color of Connection. I'm still the main founder of Color of Connection, and we're pushing the agenda of just everyone coming together. So for me, what it meant is that I had the opportunity to talk to different people. Sometimes people are afraid to come up to me or say anything, and with the Color of Connection, one of the things that I appreciated the most is there was questions that people just walked up to me and asked the question, and that's what I want. I don't want anyone to feel uncomfortable, because in others feeling uncomfortable, they make me uncomfortable. We're both uncomfortable. So just ask the question. I think sometimes a lot of people forget that the common core of quilting is, again, going back to just you doing something by hand. It doesn't have a face, it doesn't have color, it's something doing by hand. There's so much history, and how would you know my history if you don't ask me the history? How would you know? So I appreciate the opportunity that I was able to just speak to many people about just creating quilts and coming to the table to talk about quilting and talk about what it meant to me and hear what it meant to others. And for people to see, there's people like me. I grew up with quilting. This is something that is engulfed. Again, going back to my mom, she would tell me stories that in the barn, she said, I wish I would have saved all those quilts that your great-grandmother used to make. She said, when I wanted to get away, I would run to the barn and fall asleep on big stacks of quilts that were in the barn. And she was like, I wonder why they had them in the barn, but she remembers, she would tell me, I would take my book in there, me and my dog, we would be laying, and I wish I could get pictures of that, and but the memory, her telling me that, and then visiting family and saying, what about that quilt? My mom is Dottie. Dottie, what about that quilt you're working on? Oh, I'm going to make one. Every time someone's having a baby, anytime somebody's graduating, she's making either she's going to knit them something or she's going to make them a quilt. And talking about that, and I'm a kid of the 80s. My mom is a kid of the 50s, and me and her share that common ground of quilting. And how would anyone know that a person who looks like me grew up around quilts unless someone comes and talks to me about it? So Color of Connection was a way for me to show that and share that with so many people. The first thing in modern quilting that I don't appreciate is they think that the modern quilters of today are just doing it like, oh, they're doing that old lady thing. It's not an old lady thing. Oh, they're doing that white thing. It's not a white thing. What? I'm doing something that is help me guys, generationally, something that was embedded in me, something I recognize as young, hip, and fabulous, okay? I could sit in a room with a 92-year-old woman and talk about quilts and this hasn't just started for me, it's always been like that. It always been like that. Before I met my husband, I was talking about quilts, and we've been married, God bless us, almost 20 years now. So I was talking about it way before. When he met me, we were discussing, I was sharing. He probably didn't know what I was talking about till he came to the first quilt show with me, and I had the opportunity to say, yo, this is this, and they're like, oh, okay. You still don't know what I'm talking about, but it's okay. It's okay. But, quilting is something amazing. It's just an amazing creative outlet that so many have to know about. And I think some people do know about it, but they don't want to talk about it. Sometimes there's issues when it comes to quilting, some ugly stigmas that are attached to it. But how would you know about a person like me unless we open up the conversation? And then when people see me at quilt shows and they're like, oh, I get hugs, and by the way, I thought it was so sweet the last quilt show I went to, I was getting these cute little gifts because they know I was working on a paper piecing my next quilt, and they said, I have something for you. Tell me, how did you cut yours? How did you? I love that. Having the conversation. We're just two quilters. You may be more advanced. I may be more advanced. Who knows? But I love to have the conversation and open up the door. And that's one thing I loved about Color of Connection. Cindy asked me, where do I get my inspiration? So inspiration can be found everywhere, anywhere, for me. I could be walking. My first quilt pattern was inspired by the beautiful diagonal triangles that I would see in my area. There was these beautiful pieces of geometric designs that I would see, so I decided to do a big block quilt inspired by the street lights that I would see, some of the graffiti I would see in the city, the train, New York City train line. I'm always going, so I'm always looking at the artwork that they have in the trains. Beautiful, beautiful, bright colored artwork. But I get it from anywhere. And currently, because of the climate and the stage that I'm in, because we're, like I said, we have a family farm, we're in a transition of going back to North Carolina and getting our farm back up and running and having things going, it's all about the country for me. It's all about the food for me. Food is a big inspiration for me when it comes to quilting because to me, they go hand in hand, ironically. They really do. Whatever you're eating or whatever you're snacking on or whatever you smell, they go hand in hand. So for me, I think about the food as inspiration as well, the colors, the comfort of it, and right now where I'm at. So it's either wherever I'm at, I find that inspiration. So right now, it's all about, right now I'm big on horses, so I'm getting a lot of inspiration from horses because I'm hoping I can get a horse one day. Anyone else? Any other questions? Yes. Yes, great question. So Tamara asks, she has quilts from her great-grandparents, and what approach would I take to mending these quilts? So quilting, so I'll use an example. I'm in a process of fixing a quilt that I bought from a secondhand store. The first thing I did was I tried to examine what type of fabrics, what they use. Linen is my big go-to. So as I mentioned, I love linen fabrics. I'm not quite sure. It looks like it's a mixture of cottons and linens and something else. Excuse me. For me, what I did is I tried to spot clean it to make sure I can get it out. I'm too scared to put it in the washing machine. I'm very, very scared to put it in the washing machine. So I'm spot cleaning it, which these days with 3 boys, I'm always spot cleaning. So I'm trying to use like, my Tide pens, but, be very gentle and cleaning them. But assessing the fabrics, older quilts like this quilt, I would never put it in a machine now. I'm too scared. Like if you get up and close, you'll see there's some stains probably from the wear and tear over the years. I wouldn't spot clean it. I wouldn't put it in a machine, but I think assessing the materials, trying to figure out where or what it is, how durable it is, because what happens sometimes when we do, you don't know if they pre-wash the fabric, so you don't know the background of what happened. So spot cleaning it would be the best technique I would go about doing it, unless it's a really, really big problem, then I would probably dry clean it. You can dry clean a quilt. You can. You can dry clean a quilt. I've seen it done. But spot cleaning is what I would stick to, unless you know more about the fabric and the history of it. Do you know how old it might be?
My grandmother passed away in 1967.
Okay.
She was probably in the 50s, and it looks like, there was some true cotton, from a border perspective.
Yeah.
But everything else was probably shirts from someone.
Yeah. Yeah, spot cleaning it and matching fabric. So even one of a newer quilt that I'm trying to work on, I'm spot fixing it. So I'm trying to match pieces that look similar, almost doing like an applique on it and mending it in that section to create, a brand new quilt. Now, my son gave me this idea, and if you ever tried it, please share with me, because I'm like, I don't think you could do that. He wants me to make him a new quilt, but the quilt that I originally made, I don't know how he shredded it up or what I don't know what, he went to war with this quilt. I don't know what happened. But he's like, well, Mom, can't you just sandwich it through another quilt?
So my grandmother did that with most of my great-grandmother's quilts.
Nice.
She would just take a new piece of cotton fabric and put it on top of the old quilt,
Mm-hmm.
sew it down with her sewing machine, or tie it,
Okay.
mostly tied,
Okay.
and then kept it moving. But those quilts got really heavy, and as a child, we loved it because you get this heavy hug from the quilt, but that's all she would do, layer it and then tie it.
So now that you've said that, I'm going to try it. But when you mentioned the heaviness of the quilt, all I think of is it's still going to keep them warm and keep them where they need to be. So for quilts, if it's extra warm, I'm fine with that. And believe me, I think they love it, because for me, this quilt is, I really think it's about 3 pounds. I kid you not. When you come up, you can actually touch it's very heavy, but it feels like a hug. So I'm going to try that.
Tell me about your interest in linen and what you're doing.
So I've always loved linen because I feel as though linen is a natural fabric to use, and I feel like the quilts that are made with linen, for some reason, they are very durable and they last, they're timeless. So linen for me is like my go-to. So if I'm ever shopping for fabrics, I'm shopping for linen. And I love the simplicity of linen as well. Some of the blocks here are made out of this linen, mixed linen material, but I love the fact that when it's with linen, if you're lucky, you could find like a natural dye, really, really pretty natural dye linen. So I love the fact that, again, it's so durable and it's something that will last forever. So for me, I prefer to work with linen more than anything else. A lot of, my fellow quilters, modern quilters that work with me, they kind of steer away from linen because it's not as bright as the other current fabrics that they have out here today. But again, timeless. I'm one of those classic people. I try to stick. I love the past. It comes to the future. So linen for me is what I'll always go to. And the quilts that I'm working on now, my next quilt pattern is inspired by linen. And then I think farm, natural. Just stick with the natural life of linen, yeah. The battings that I use in between, I always use a natural cotton. Natural cotton is what I use. I get a big spool of it, and I use natural cotton. Again, timeless. I know that it's going to last, years after. It's something I could pass on. I do think about how it affects when I'm giving out gifts of my quilt, so I'll always stick with a natural cotton. Yeah. Now, between this quilt, I can't remember what was used between it. So it could be a mixture but I feel like it probably was a cotton that she used because of the depth of it, but I'm not quite sure what she used. But in between mines, I'm always using a natural cotton. It's just my go-to. Yeah.
When you learn to quilt, are you doing a rocking stitch that I found intimidating? When you were young, is that what you learned?
So I traditionally my mom has these, she did it herself. She made this frame. And I use a big hoop, 18-inch hoop when I'm doing mine. And it's a traditional rocking stitch. Up, down, up, down. I'm trying to learn more of the running stitches today. I always mispronounce it, but I'm a big fan of, forgive me, I know I'm gonna mispronounce it, so bear with me. Thank you. I try to use that because I love that technique. Our family is going to Japan for a little while, so I plan on learning a little bit more about that because I love how that looks as well in quilt art. And I have a friend, she actually didn't do any pattern piecing, she just did the shushuko all over her quilt, and how amazing it looks. I'm just so, I have to learn more about that. So but when I look at that, again, it goes back to what this whole talk is about, the passion of quilting, because dated back, the Japanese, they started doing that. I can't even tell you when that started, but they just started with, the hand movement of doing this, and something that's timeless. And if you visit some of the museums, and my brother sent me some pictures, I said, whatever you do while you're there, let me see some of the beauty of the shushuko stitching. I couldn't believe the dates, wow, and it still looks so brand new and so fresh. And then I think about when he went out, I wanted to get a sewing machine that did that. And the price of that sewing machine that could do something that you could do by hand, wow. I don't know if you've priced that in particular machine there. I'm not gonna say who has the machine, but the price of that machine is so, I can make probably 25 quilts from the price of that one sewing machine, and it's something that I could do by hand, something we all can do by hand.
During COVID, I did 3 tops, but the one top, when I was stitching the piece, and I hand stitched everything, because many times, because we couldn't go out, I'd sit out on my patio, and so it got too hot, and then I took that. But during this, I broke my wrist, and I taught myself to hand piece with my left hand. So there's a piece of this quilt that's put together with my left hand.
Oh, wow.
And anytime I look at it, I always think about that.
Oh, my God.
I thought you might enjoy it.
No, thank you. No, thank you. You made me think when she said her left hand, my mom's a lefty, I'm a righty. So it's so funny that I watch her do her quilts, and then she actually would get a little irritated when I would do it because she's a lefty, and she's like, what are you doing? Give me my quilt back, because she would stitch it a little bit different than how I stitch it. But thank you so much for sharing that amazing, amazing story. And again, thinking about where you were, right? This summer, my mom has her mini garden on her terrace, and we sit out there, and of course, natural farmer, she is covered in, she just gave us so many peppers. We don't need any more peppers, Ma. She's sitting there just just using her hands, still sitting there, creating in her element, making stuff, stitching along. And we're sitting on the terrace. We don't have to run inside to get anything. We can do it where we are. Prospect Park, sitting in the park with my kids this summer, just sitting there. They're able to do stuff, and I'm able to just sit there. And I always pack it to go, like it's in the car. I did an interview, and she shared a giggle with me because I said, listen, if you go in my car, and I know my husband gets tired of it, he does, you'll see there's always some sort of quilt in there. And he's always bringing it in the house, and I'm always taking it back in the car because, wherever we got to go, even if I'm going to the supermarket, I just got to get that one little stitch in, or I have to piece. Like I said, I'm trying to recreate this. And again, I don't know how my mom did it, but for me, it's like each one, you can actually see the stitches of each one that she put together. No machine, by hand, by herself, with 6 kids, busy household, and she just pieced it together. And this is one of many because we had so many. It was 6 of us. She wanted everybody to have their own quilt on their bed. So everybody had a quilt on their bed that she pieced together because she would get so frustrated about putting that needle in her sewing machine, even though it created only one stitch.
So what fabrics you're using in your recreation? Are you using clothing that people are?
Yes. So I'm on a sustainability mission. That's what my workshop is tomorrow. I'm doing a sustainable quilting workshop by hand. There's everything is massively produced today. There's just too much of stuff. Everybody is going through too much of stuff. I'll share with you, I'll go to a quilt show and I overbuy. I always overbuy. And it'll sit in my workshop and sit in my workshop and sit in my workshop. And then I'll get inspired by, I have to have it. I go and I buy everything. I buy the whole collection. Why? For what? And then it sits there. So I made the conscious and very impactful decision for myself that I did not want to keep doing that. I don't need to do that. I need to use what I have on hand. I get very frustrated at the beginning of every spring, packing all my kids' clothes in bags and bags and bags to donate. It frustrates me. It makes me very sad because I don't know where these clothes are going, and I don't want to be another person just setting up the demise of our planet. So I decided, let me cut these pieces out. That's how quilting started anyway. Let me find the color, light colors with light colors, darks with darks, and create a beautiful masterpiece from what I use. And my clothes mostly are always linen cotton, so I have so much there. So let's cut it out. I get the kids involved too, even though they try to dodge me every time. Every time they try to dodge me, as soon as they come downstairs and they see me, do you want to help me? I forgot to feed my pet bird. My sons will come up with any excuse to get away. But I'm cutting them out, and I'm thinking about what I used to do with Mom, cut out little pieces, create little pieces, and when I run out, which I doubt I will run out in my lifetime, I doubt. I can only pray and hope that someone else will get these bags of fabrics and these supplies that I have and will be able to enjoy and create something for themselves.
Can you talk a little about the technical aspect of your hand quilting? Like you said, you put it in a hoop, but yes. Is there a particular needle, thread?
So I do have my thread needles that I do use. It's a Japanese brand that I have. I can't pronounce it, but I purchased them. I don't know if you guys have this Japanese store here, but where I am from, it's called a Daiso. Do you have it in Wisconsin? Okay, so it's called a Daiso, the store. It's a Japanese-inspired store, and they have these hand quilting needles that they sell, and they're like $1. I picked them up from there, but any traditional standard hand quilting needle, I know there's needles here. A good friend of mine got some information for me today about some of the needles, so I'm going to visit that booth today and probably pick up some more needles. But a traditional standard hand stitch needle. I actually have a collection with Aerofill for threads. I'm a big Aerofill thread girl. And I'm putting out a hand quilting thread line that I use because when I went to the last quilt show, I was able to pick up some of the threads. But again, in my natural state, I have 3 colors, which is usually the gold, the copper, and then the white. So the one that I use in this one is the copper. I usually like a heavy weight, like a 14. You know, it's nice and durable. And again, a rocking stitch that I go back and forth with. I'm learning more about how to hide my knots. So I'm not an expert in that. I can't give you that, but I'm learning. I'm trying to do better with my knots. So on the back of my quilt, you'll see that I have some little stitches that I knotted together, and so, you know, once they meet. So I'm trying to learn the technique of hiding them in a quilt, and I've seen some amazing stuff, again, with some of former Nancy's programs where she shows how you can hide the stitch underneath, which is really good information. So next time I see you, if I'm able to do it, it'll be bigger and better, and I'll show you that I was able to hide all those stitches.
Heidi Parks is a quilter, and she purposely does not hide her knots. It's part of the texture of the quilt.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, Heidi Parks. She's
So-
on Instagram also.
So you see how different, so I was told when I was so excited and I was sharing this quilt with someone, and the first thing they said was like, "Oh no, honey, the back of your quilt is not done." I said, "Oh, I didn't know, you know, I grew up with my mom. She didn't hide hers. You know, she would just, I guess she hid these inside because she put a layer of fabric on top of it. But I thought it was pretty neat that, you know, you could see but no. But thank you. That made me feel so much better, so much better. Wow, no, seriously, I feel that was like a weight, because I was like, I'm not there yet. I haven't got to that level, but thank you. So at least I know there's 2 types of techniques for the hand quilting. Okay, so I want to thank you all so much for having me. This was amazing. You guys were so awesome. I genuinely want you to understand you were so awesome in helping me create this lecture. And I hope by Saturday, the jitters will be gone. I won't sound like I'm crying. So thank you, thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And if any of you want to talk, you want to say hi, I'm a hugger, hug me. Thank you all.
Proceeds from the Great Wisconsin Quilt Show support PBS Wisconsin programming. Your financial gift helps make this event possible. Thank you.